Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View. In this morning's Celtic news, a whole can of worms has been opened up after the first defeat of the season. Yes, it is only the first defeat of the season, and it seems to be that the Celtic fan base and everyone is in complete meltdown about the fact that we have lost one game. Now, if we go on to the end of the season and only lose one game all season, I'll look back and it'll be a tremendous season, and hopefully that will happen. But Mark Wilson has been talking about Nat Phillips and the fact that he's been chosen over Gustav Lagerbielke and Big Rocky. He says that Rodgers is doing something completely strange. He says, not once when I have looked at Nat Phillips, whether it be domestically or in the Champions League, I've never once came away saying he looks a worthy replacement for Cameron Carter-Vickers. I think we can all agree for that. Especially when the fact that Liam Scales played alongside young Gustav at the beginning of the season. They played 7 games together, and they only conceded. He had 4 clean sheets, did Gustav, at the beginning of the season. So it is a bit strange. Mark Wilson, who did play in defence for Celtic, says, and I've came away from that Kilmarnock game, and I think that in possession, when you look at Nat Phillips, he just doesn't do it for me. He doesn't do it. Out of possession, he was getting dragged everywhere. He goes for the ball across the face of goal, which resulted in an own goal. There's 2 games in a row that he has cost us goals. And an important time of the year, we know how hard it is. But we always drop points in December, so let's calm down. As long as we don't drop any more points between now and the winter shutdown, it'll all be fine. Anyway, Scott Brown. Let's get to Scott Brown, because a lot of people have been saying since Harry Kewell looks like he might be leaving Celtic during the winter transfer window, people have been saying that Scott Brown should come back to Celtic and work under Brendan Rodgers. But he has come out and spoken, Scotty, the old Brownie. He said that the difficulties of the Brendan Rodgers, who's having his fingers pointed on him, the January transfer window, he says this is where Brendan will move players in and out. He says he's done it before, he'll do it again. The Ayrshire loss was a bad day on a plastic pitch against an opponent that played well, which you have to take that into consideration, said Scott Brown. I think Big Vickers missing for them was at the core of the defence. The Celtic, ex-Celtic captain went on to say, he says he keeps Liam Scales and Nat Phillips intact. He leads by example. He's very composed, is the big man. He said he's very good on the ball and he builds attacks. Things that you can't squeeze out of any other player, you can get out of Cameron Carter-Vickers. He said, look, when it comes down to it, Celtic were missing 4 players. They're missing Cameron Carter-Vickers, they're missing Leo Abada, they were missing Rio Hatate, and they were missing Dyson Maida. Now, you take 4 players out of that team in the last 2 seasons, would they have been as successful as they were the past 2 seasons? Scott Brown went on to say, so you can take the man out of Celtic, but you can't take Celtic out the man. And speaking about his career and coming back to Celtic, he's basically put that to bed, saying, look, I enjoyed my time at Celtic. It was a wonderful time. It was a wonderful time. But when I look at things, it says, I don't know, I'm quite enjoying time off at the moment, especially over this festive period, which historically has been a busy time for him. He says, I love my time at Celtic. I honestly did. It was a fantastic time. I went away to try and learn a lot for myself, to have an understanding of being a manager. I think I want to go down that route again if I get the opportunity. I'm in no rush to drive back, said Scott Brown, and dive back into football. He says, let's get past this winter period. Let's get past this and see what happens. I'll definitely look at something at the turn of the year into next year. But I am in no rush. I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to take time off, see my kids who I've not seen a lot of in the past 3 years. And I'm going to go and watch them play football in the lovely winter rain. So Scott Brown's enjoying the time. Look, he's a Celtic icon. He's glad that he's not in the fishbowl of everything Glasgow Celtic and everything that goes around the whole Celtic Rangers thing. He did go on to say in his interview. So we should move on, and Scott's moved on. And, he did love his time at Celtic, but he doesn't see himself coming back, and especially to work in the backroom staff. He wants to go on and be his own man, and who could fault him at that? Let's talk about Celtic transfers, because Aberdeen had their AGM, and they've been talking about the fact that they want to keep their main striker, Bojan Mavovsky. And let's face it, if Celtic come in with the money, speaking at the AGM, the Don's hierarchy said that they're in no rush to sell the striker, but he says if the money comes in, look, he says we have a player transfer model. He says we have a player transfer model, and the prospect of selling the 24-year-old next month, we're in no rush to sell him. We have a player trading model that requires us at times when it suits to sell our players. However, it has to be at a value that is believed right for the club. Now, the fact is that they bought him in for $500,000. If Celtic are going to go out and offer $4 million for the player, which seems to be about the asking price that they're said to be at, some pundits have ridiculously, absolutely, I don't know where they're pulling these figures from, but they're saying he's a £10 million player. Anyway, I don't think so. He has demonstrated that he can score goals in the SPFL. Will he be the type of player that can do it for Celtic? What will happen when Kyogo and O comes back from the international duties that they will be playing at in the turn of the year? Will Bojan be happy to sit on the bench? This is the big question that needs asked. But with Kyogo not playing to the strength that he has, and it might be a chance that Kyogo might not even go to the Asia Cup. We'll see what happens in the turn of the year. But Aberdeen said that they will sell him if Celtic meet the requirements. Anyway, let's move on from that. The big man, Chris Sutton. We do love a big Chris Sutton conversation on this channel. Big Sutton is talking about one Celtic player that he said isn't up for it. And a lot of us said on the live last night where we went through the whole squad. And if you haven't watched that live, it was a fantastic live. And thank you to everyone that watched that and commented at the time. And we went through the whole squad of players and we spoke about players that we think that it was either keep, bench, or sell. Keep, bench, or sell was the narrative for the players, and we went through the whole squad and we spoke about them on the live last night. But one player that big Chris Sutton said doesn't do it for him or Celtic is Yang. Yang has not lived up to it yet. He looked like someone who had won a raffle to get a game in the first half at the weekend. Yep, he looks like one of the fat lads that gets on at the pitch at half time at Celtic Park to try and score from the halfway line. Basically, said Chris Sutton. It wasn't too long ago that the South Korean was a little bewildered. Looked a little bewildered. Let's not forget that Yang is only 22. He's moved halfway across the world, and he's probably still. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. This narrative that when the good players. Could you imagine Messi going to America at his age and then struggling to do it in America purely for the fact that he's moved to a country that he doesn't speak the language and it's America? I don't buy that. I don't buy this narrative that their management come out with now and again that look the players struggling to adapt to life in the country. Well, that's outside football. That's outside football. When it comes to crossing that line and on the pitch, you turn it on. You turn on your football brain. Whatever happens outside, you turn on your football brain, you get into football mode. It's your job. As simple as that. So is he struggling? Well, yes, we all think he's struggling, but injuries due to injuries to Dyson Maida, Leila Bada have forced Rodgers to play Yang. And you've got to remember that Yang was a player that was brought in by the previous management. So what does that say how the previous manager has left us? Well, we all agree on the evidence showing that, look, he can be a good impact player from the bench. It's not good enough. We don't need impact player from the bench. Anyway, we move on from that. Chris Sutton also went on to say, look, Brendan Rodgers is really having a bit of a nightmare when it comes to the fact that he had to replace Ange Postecoglou. He was looking to take a year out of management. This is the second time this season that Derek McInnes has got one over Rodgers, having previously knocked us out, Celtic out the Vidplay Cup back in August. Let's just hope that Aberdeen can do their thing this weekend and do the right thing because they only turn up for one game a season. Anyway, move on for that. Chris Sutton insists that domestic defeat was on the cards from Rodgers for some time. It's the first defeat of the season. Even Chris Sutton says that it was just the first defeat of the season, but this has been coming. He says it has been coming. It's been coming all season. Whether you split the domestic form up with the Champions League, which I think you can say that, look, the Champions League level is completely different from playing in the week in, week out. But Celtic weren't ready for the Champions League. They weren't well prepared, and it's shown in the Champions League. They should have been ready. They've known for a long time that they had qualified. All these years of going through qualifying rounds and the stress that Celtic have of bringing in players late, which they did again this season. They should have had the players in early. They should have known that Ange Postecoglou, there was a chance that he wouldn't stay as Celtic manager. The Celtic hierarchy should have pre-planned for that. They should have pre-planned for that. And they should have made sure that, I know that they had these 9 players in place already before Brendan Rodgers came into it. But there are worrying signs, says Chris Sutton. As far as I can see, I don't think the fans base are fooled by what is going on. The biggest worry at the weekend was, as you can lose matches in many ways, but you were outplayed on a team, and you can blame the pitch and you can do this and whatever, but Celtic seem to freeze. They seem to have a fear, and the truth is, domestically, they are not feared as much as they were a few years ago, especially under Ange Postecoglou. I wish people would stop talking about Ange. He's down in England now doing his things with Spurs, and I'm sure he's probably lost a game already this season, but never mind. He probably wouldn't be slated as much as what Celtic would. It's just the narrative of the mainstream media in Scotland, and with that, we have to take it on the chin. It is only the first defeat of the season. We are still top of the league looking down on the Rangers, and so what? They've got a game in hand. But when it comes to it at the end of the month, as long as we beat them, that's it. It's all that matters. And on that note, have a fantastic day.
Lit. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party. Roll up to the party.